On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1963. We're going to be taking a look at the Beatles, and they're going to be performing She Loves You and Twist and Shout. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So first of all, a bit of background behind this video, but also the performance video, because I featured this a few years ago and my analysis video got blocked, unfortunately, on copyrights. And then this performance disappeared from YouTube, so wherever it was being hosted, it must have got blocked as well, and people that wanted to watch it couldn't. I've always wanted to revisit this, and I know that the analysis videos that I do, and this one, is covered by the fair use law, or fair dealings as we call it here in the UK, which means that when you feature anything that you don't own the copyrights to personally, it must be transformative, and this is an analysis video. I have isolated the vocals as well. We'll be getting into the pitch monitoring software, looking at things in detail as we normally do. So I will be jumping into this video. So I'll probably cover a few of the points that I did in that previous analysis video years ago, but obviously we're jumping into it with newer technology, so there'll be a lot more that we can learn from this performance. And sadly, I can't provide a link for you guys to watch this anywhere, because this is from my original video that I've taken the footage of their performance from. But let's jump into it and see how they get on.
Ska börja med. Den heter She Loves You.
She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, 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 yeah. You think you've lost your love? Well, I saw her yesterday. It's you she's thinking of, and she told me what to say. She said she loves you, and you know that can't be bad. She loves you, and you know you should be glad. She said you hurt her so, she almost lost her mind. Now she says she knows you're not the hurting kind. She says she loves you, and you know that can't be bad. She loves you, and you know you should be glad. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. With a love like that, you know you should be glad. You know it's up to you. I think it's only fair. Pride can hurt you too. Apologize to her, because she loves you, and you know that can be bad. She loves you, and you know you should be glad. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. With a love like that, you know you should be glad. With a love like that, you know you should be glad. With a love like that, you know you should be glad. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And there we have it. For She Loves You, they will be doing Twist and Shout after this. But this performance, I mean, we can tell it's early because of the fact that we've got the crowd there so close to the Beatles and they're not getting mobbed by teenage fans. You can tell here that they are so well versed and so competent as musicians. When they started playing live, this is the great thing about them, they played live so much, and when they went over to Germany at the beginning of their career and just did as many gigs as they could do, it meant that they were effectively rehearsing but while playing live. And it's such an effective way of learning. Anybody that plays an instrument, if you're in a band yourself, you will know that you learn so much from a live performance when you then compare that to when you're in the rehearsal studio and, you know, the atmosphere is really relaxed, nobody's watching you, there's no pressure. As soon as you're playing in front of people, it's a totally different kettle of fish, and therefore you learn so much more, because now it's like, if you're a sports person, it's now like competing. You're like a soccer player playing in a match rather than just doing training. So you learn so much, and this is exactly what the Beatles did. They went out, they played, so that they got their show down, and it was just so subconscious almost that they could start then to focus on things like we see in this video, such as Paul McCartney looking at the camera, knowing where the camera is, singing, playing his bass at the same time, but having that extra bit of processing power in his mind to look at the camera and engage the audience behind the screen, because that's another huge part of appealing to the mass market, is knowing that there are other people on the side of this camera and he's performing to them as well as the crowd that are there on the day. This is one of those videos that I could analyse for years, but it's just the look that Paul gives the camera as well. It's a bit cheeky, but this is part of the charm and part of the overall performance and the way to put the audience at ease. I would say another part of that is the showmanship, and when they sing the oohs, just shaking their heads, putting that kind of element into it, which also gets the crowd on side. I don't know when it was, but just after they've done one of those oohs, you can see in the crowd that there's a guy who's laughing his head off, and then he starts clapping along to the song. And that's such a great example of having showmanship in there, endearing yourself to the crowd. So somebody that might have been, there he is, somebody that might have been, I don't know, not getting into it previously, and, you know, might have had reservations about, you know, 4 guys in a band or the style of music. A bit of showmanship and a bit of rapport with the audience is everything in order to endear yourself to them. But have a look at this, the guy in the background. I'll use my little arrow to point him out. So he's gone from, I'm sure, not clapping along after the oohs, and we don't get to see it on the screen, but they're kind of shaking their heads while they do it. He loved it, and now he's clapping along. So, I mean, there's tiny details, but that's what showmanship is, and you can only put showmanship into a performance when your performance is subconscious from a musical standpoint. Instrumentally, singing, you've got to have all of that going on and have the freedom to be able to express yourself in more of a physical way, and that's what showmanship's all about. I have kept the original mix from the original video, and the vocals are quite high in the mix. We could boost the instrumentation, but I'm just going to keep it the same as it was from this TV show. But have a look at the pitch monitoring software to see the notes that the guys are hitting. I'm just going to stop it there because we've got the G4 and we are solid pitch-wise. They are all hitting the same notes here. So we're going from the G4, F sharp 4, which is the same as the G flat 4, and going down to the E4. But throughout that whole intro, this is the thing, that they start off so accurate with pitch, and that's exactly what you want at the beginning of a song, because that's the thing that gets judged the most by the audience, the first thing you hear. If it's off key, instantly you're now struggling to kind of bring back the performance from the bad start. So these guys knew exactly how important it was to start as you mean to go on, just spot on pitch-wise. Let's listen on. Actually, let's take out the backing.
You think you've lost your love? Well, I saw her yesterday. It's you she's thinking of. And she told me what to say. She said she loves you. and you know that can't be bad. She loves you.
You also get such a great appreciation of the vocals, the harmonies, the way that they sing together so well. But look at the way that, I mean, this note is really important, the G4. Let me just take it back, because there's quite a jump here for Paul to make with the melody of the song.
To say, hey, she said she loves you.
Up there, the G4. So I've put the piano up on screen, so we've got a reference point. Top end of the male tenor range, A4, and the G4 is just 2 semitones or a tone below that. And he's not hitting this in a light head voice, he's still keeping his chest voice going. So he's kind of belting it out, that G4, very quickly. And that note has got to be spot on because it is so short. It's not as if you get to start singing the note and can just adjust it. If you're flat, you know, bring it up a bit, or if you're sharp, bring it down a bit. He's just hit it right between the eyes on this G4. It has to be great. It has to be spot on, and it is.
And you know that can't be bad. She loves you, and you know you should be glad. She said you hurt her so, she almost lost her mind.
I mean, it's so good from a harmony point of view. The harmonizing going on here between the three of them is great. And just to mention Ringo, I did in the previous video about his drumming style and the fact that he had his own identity, which is so hard to get on a drum kit because you don't have the advantage of melody in order to pick particular notes that makes it sound like you're playing. And the fact that he's left-handed, or was left-handed, and is obviously still left-handed, but back at the time of this performance, playing a right-handed kit but left-handed, it means that he just came up with things that were totally unique and things that a normal right-handed drummer on a right-handed kit wouldn't necessarily do. Let's just jump into it again.
You, and you know you should be glad. Woo! She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah.
And just to point out there, we had the D5. If we're going back to our piano over here, the D5 is here. So again, just a tone above the C5, but this is more of a head voice kind of sound. This isn't really being belted out in chest voice. So it's a lighter sound, but again, great range. And, you know, all this top end here, counter tenor range and top end of the male tenor range when we had the chest voice that Paul was hitting. So it's impressive because obviously, you know, down here we've got John Lennon's going to be hitting notes, especially as we'll look at a little bit later. When he got higher up in his range, that's where he started to get that rasp. But for the most part, he's going to be lower. He's going to be more towards the top end of the baritone range. And when we talk about George as well, similar kind of thing. We'll move it forward and I'll keep in the talking between songs because this again is a huge part of not only the connection with the audience, putting them at ease, but the rapport that the band have, which is such an important thing because if the band are having fun on stage, then the audience has fun as well. It really does break down the formal barrier at the front of the stage when performers are really serious and don't really interact very much. You don't get that jovial kind of atmosphere, which is what the Beatles shows were all about, especially in these early days when it was so intimate.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'd like to carry on now with the song. Before we do, we'd like to ask you if you'd join in with us.
Join in.
Join in. If you will, as we sing the song, just clap your hands, or yes, or if you want to, stamp your feet on the floor, but just make a noise, okay? You do that?
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Okay then, the song, Twist and Shout.
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Twist and shout. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now. Come on and work it on
and there we have it, including the choreography at the end with the bows, perfectly in time with each other. But, I mean, this is another great example of what the Beatles did, especially early on in their career, playing covers and bringing their own songs in with those cover songs. So Twist and Shout, you could hear that everybody knew this song and were very excited to hear it. But it's one thing to play covers, but then to bring your own songs in, they've got to be good enough. Imagine if you just played covers and then you had your own songs that weren't very good, and then everyone's waiting for you to go and play a cover song again and get away from your original material. It's another thing about the Beatles just being such great songwriters. And, you know, I mean that as a whole band, because when you're thinking about, you know, Lennon and McCartney, their songwriting ability, such great hits, just hit after hit after hit that they wrote. But then George Harrison as well, his songwriting ability and the fact that they had different influences. And this is something that I'm sure in the early days was a huge advantage for their songwriting collectively. It might be something that further down the line, towards the end of the 60s, that it started to pull them in different directions because of those different interests that they had, and they might have wanted to explore different styles of music individually. So then working together as a band became more difficult. Just to mention about how dry this sound is, because there's nothing, when I say dry, I mean a lack of effects. There's nothing on the mics, there's nothing on their guitars. It's just literally playing clean, playing live. And if you can sound good like this, then you've got it made, because any effects are just going to embellish your sound. But back to the performance of Twist and Shout, because you can tell in this performance, and whenever John Lennon performed this, the rasp that he has in his voice towards the top end of his range, and really this is the top end of his chest voice that he's going into here. He's belting this out, and listening to the isolated vocal,
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout.
you can see how this G4 is where we are pretty much for the whole song. It is relentless. So it means that if you're trying to rest your vocal in this song, it's impossible. John just belts this out the whole time, and it's actually an A4 that he's going up to, or trying to go up to, because he's belting this out. It means this is right at the top end of his chest voice.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now. Come on, baby. Come on and work it on out. Work it on out. Work it on out. You know you look so good.
And you can hear that sometimes his voice just breaks out, or kind of breaks off, just for a split second, because, I mean, this is what will happen. It's effectively like shouting. I don't want to say shouting because it is still singing, but it's like shouting on pitch. And this G4, you know, the fact that he's trying to hit that A4 as well, get a tone higher, means he's really pushing it.
So good. You know you got me going now, just like I knew you would.
Even there, I would say that the sound we're getting from John's voice is as if he can't hear his voice very well. It sounds like shouting, especially in that part where he's going lower.
So good. You know you got me going now.
So there, I mean, we're down to a D4, so it's na. You know, it isn't a high note.
Let's take it, baby, now.
And there we had it. So going up to that, what would be the A4, na 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 na. That's the that's going up to the A4. Obviously, I'm doing it in a lighter kind of head voice configuration to show you what the notes are. But he's kind of getting up to the na. He's kind of going up, but a semitone below that. But this is the thing about belting in chest voice. The fatigue is going to set in, especially when you're going for it like this. So getting this na 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 na, you know, every guy that does that, especially if you're a baritone, every guy that does that is going to have to push their chest voice to get up to that A4. And like I said, it's relentless. So you're not going to get any place to rest throughout this whole performance.
Twist and shout. Twist and shout. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now. Come on, work it out. Twist it, girl.
And I love the way that John, he just keeps going for it. He's not going to make any concessions with this. He's just going to belt it out the whole time. And the good thing is that when he does go up to the semitone and doesn't quite hit the A, hits the A flat, I think everybody's ear just fills in the gap. You kind of assume that he's getting up to that point, but because he doesn't, it just gives it a slightly different sound and gives it, if anything, a little bit more attitude because of the rasp on the sound. If he was going na 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 and kind of was too perfect with it, it just wouldn't have the same impact.
You know you twist so fine. Come on and twist a little closer now.
And I mean, when we're talking about pitch accuracy, G4 just bang on throughout that whole phrase, but we're talking about bang on throughout the whole of both of these songs, collectively harmonizing with each other as well.
And let me know that you're mine.
And then because we're listening to the isolated vocal, of course, we can't hear that instrumental break that comes in now. But it's just something to mention about that, having the ability to play an instrument so that you can have an instrumental break in there. If you were just singers, you wouldn't be able to do this. You'd need a band playing the song for you, and then you just have to maybe clip your fingers or something, or click your fingers just to keep people engaged. But you know, we've got musicians here, we've got instrumentalists who are singing as well, and it's such a huge thing being able to play an instrument and sing at the same time at this kind of level live. I think it is something that flies under the radar for people that just sing and don't play and sing at the same time, especially playing, singing and harmonizing with each other. Yeah, unless you learn to do it, especially when you're playing riffs on the instrument as well, which really does up the difficulty level, then yeah, you don't really get an appreciation of how difficult it is, especially when you're watching these guys, because they make it look so easy. And I mean, I love that because Ringo, his fill is too fast. He finishes the fill too early, but they are so tight. I've mentioned about being tight before on the channel, playing live when you're all on the same page. He just finishes it a little bit early, but everyone then comes in exactly when he finishes that fill. So again, it's just being this one cohesive unit that are just all on the same page all the time. And you can actually hear a few of the screams that are starting up. So even here in 1963, it was getting to that stage where the audience weren't able to control themselves. So great to take a look at the Beatles again. Specifically, this performance is one of those that I loved looking at the first time, and the fact that we can now see their voices, it makes it even better with the isolated vocal as well. As technology's moved on, it means that we can appreciate it on a whole new level. But this was originally a performance on a Swedish TV show, for those of you that are wondering where this was. And you can tell that the audience is already starting to get into it a little bit like they would do in the following years, but they're just about under control here. So thank you guys for requesting this particular video many years ago. It's great to have a look at it again. I hope you guys have enjoyed this particular video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Keep those suggestions and requests coming, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!